Just finishing out our nose cap. We make these from scratch. Just touching base here. Haven't done a whole lot here in the past few days. Been so busy. But what we're doing is we basically scribe around here. We cut down. We cut with a saw curve here, and then we cut one about here, and we remove the wood between those two, the thickness of the brass. Then we forge this curve in the bottom. I tend to like my nose caps with a ramrod groove down it. I do not like seeing like airspace between the nose cap and a ramrod. That's just personally. And then we're coming in here with a little tiny rivet that's going to come in from the top side. This will end up setting up against the barrel, and then we'll end up peening the bottom side of it to fill in this void. I like making nose caps from scratch for a couple reasons. One is you can make it exactly what you want, the thickness all the way through. You can come through and you can see, you can make it the width you want. Your forestock doesn't have to conform to a nose cap. Also, you can make it the depth from here to there. Some of the commercial nose caps, this is already preset, and if your web between the barrel and the ramrod is thinner than this or thicker than this, then you're going to have a bad fit or some kind of a gap thing here. So just coming through, we're going to put the rivet through, put the barrel back in. The barrel work is the anvil to go ahead and set this. You don't have to use one rivet. You can use two or three. That's optional. You can go here and here on some originals. Like JP Beck puts one here and there in the front. Normally there's three in his. Sometimes it's a combination of copper rivets on a brass cap. I prefer to use brass for both sides of it and try to get the same color brass so you don't have a variation. My goal is to make it look like it doesn't have a rivet in it. Nose cap wise, once you get it fit on there, if you have a poor fit, say you cut this way down too much, you do some alteration that doesn't, you took too much wood away, you can always put some kind of a glue or a whatever that gray crap is that you put on stuff, and come through and fill that and squeeze this on there. The main thing is get a nice tight fit on the backside. I come through and I keep hand fitting this. It's very important you don't swage your nose cap twisted. It's important to me that it's exactly the same width here as it is on the opposite side. And coming off the barrel, when we put it all together, will be extended past this nose cap. If you make this flush with the muzzle of your gun, many times what will happen is when this gets wet, it'll push this out. The nose cap will actually go past your muzzle of your barrel. I tend to do at least a nickel's width, and even that, sometimes a nickel's width off the front of the thing, this will still push all the way out to the front. So somewhere behind that, you'll find that once the gun gets wet, it'll push out, then it'll shrink back, it'll come back, normally a little bit shorter than when you first built it. That's just the nature of the wood. It'll expand out. Gun I hunt with all the time, it goes all the way up even, then it comes all the way back. It probably has almost 2 dimes worth or almost a nickel and a half's worth of dimension off the front muzzle. I don't really care. Main thing is when your pins or your keys are in here, you have enough movement through all that, and I think I've covered that in past videos, that you definitely need enough loop space that your pin, wedge pin, or whatever you're using, key, has the movement in there. So that's where we are today. Finishing it up. It's got a nice tight fit. Very happy with it. This is a little John Sheets rifle we're building for a customer, handmade pipe. So all's good. Have a great day. Just touching base here again. We've got a rivet installed. You can just barely see it. I mean, there's a tiniest bit of color difference. What I do is you can put your pin in here, which helps, but I like to put a clamp. I'll take one of these wood clamps. It doesn't crush anything. Put that in there hold it tight on the front end, and then rivet that. So you're mushrooming the top of the rivet, and then you're putting the rivet up through so it sets on the barrel. Leave it a little bit long. Go ahead and push the whole rod through. I scribe it, cut it off with a jeweler's saw. So it's just a tiny bit proud. If you leave it too long, what will happen is that rivet will bend on you, and it'll shift this back off the wood. So I don't work it that way. I just leave it just a tiniest bit above. Then take your punch, go around the outside, and start to mushroom that head out. Once it starts to cone out and starts forming a top, don't hit the center of it. Once you start to touch the sides of your countersink, then once you get to the point that it's starting to touch that, Then you can pound the center of the rivet, which will expand it out even more and tighten everything up. And don't try to over pound it, because what will happen is you'll end up denting the inside of your groove here. I use a long tapered countersink for that. So what will happen is you'll get more purchase or more connection with your rivet all the way down. If you use a little tight, very sharp edged angled countersink, what happens? Your mushroom will be on the top. When you file this, there's a good chance you're going to lose a lot of that fine top area. I use the same technique when I'm putting inlays in on the silver, even though I use a different kind of a countersink, a little tapered one. You want it to the point that when your pins are going through holding any inlay in, that it's got a nice long connection there, so it just doesn't pop off. Because when you put a really sharp angled countersink, sometimes when you file it, you'll take that lip edge off, and then basically your pin or your rivet's holding almost nothing. So you can see what we've got here. You see the wood stock is kind of a pinky color. The reason is because I use scrapers for the bulk of my shaping. Go through with rasp, files, and then I come through with scrapers like this guy and a couple other contours and stuff, shaping, scraping. Keep in mind, if you scrape like this with the curl, you'll get more of a washboard effect. If you scrape more in an angle, kind of across the grain, it'll give you a little smoother shaping. Then I don't pick up the sandpaper until I get to like a 240. That's kind of like a 240 grit, just to smooth things out. Once it's all cleaned up, before I start any carving or doing, in this case, molding lines, I go ahead and splash it down with some water to raise the grain, but put a tiny drop or two of stain in your water. And that way, as you're cleaning the gun up, you'll see the places that have some color tint to it that tell you need to sand more or scrape more in that region. Also, if you get any big scratch lines, like from a rasp that you maybe used earlier, or your wood plane chattered some, those pinky areas or orange colors will tell you where you need to do more work to get down to where everything's going to be nice and smooth. So we're just to the point now we're going to get to have some fun. Going to try to get some moldings cut today. I may touch base on that here after a bit. I normally do my front moldings first out of the gate, and we'll try to show some of the processes on that. Bye, guys.